And Brandon's the sexiest man alive.
Okay.
No,
In
second
addition
only
to
to
being the
Gio.
sexiest man alive, is he our first repeat guest?
I guess, yeah.
What an
We
honor.
just we just ran our 100th episode.
Oh, congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think this is another milestone. We have a repeat guest.
Amazing.
And Brandon, you're totally worthy of repeating. So thank you for being here. So Brandon is the CEO at REKalibrate, and Ryan is the CTO. For our listeners who don't know, tell us the story. You were just kind of diving into your partnership, which started in 2022, or your combining of give us the background. Who are you? What do you do? Why are we here?
Yeah, so I had the honor to be on the podcast, I don't know, a year ago, Gio. Gio wasn't there. Gio had something to do that was far.
That's why Gio's like, I don't know, was he on the podcast? I can't remember why you missed that one. That's right.
I think I was trying to kill Bambi. I might have been on no, I had an accident, or there was something that had happened where I was stuck somewhere.
This was the side by side. I think you got into a crash.
Oh, right? Yes, my side by side got stolen, remember?
Oh,
and I was down in South Dallas trying to recuperate it. Yeah, there you go, Brandon.
Okay. So, well, I was totally happy with that because I got Brandon all to myself and I get to nerd out on what he's working on. So I'm happy to have you back.
Brandon Medeiros, longtime friend of the pod. Anyways, yeah, it's great to be back. I was involved in the GWA for a while. I've been in the Flex community outside WeWork since I think 2020. So I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of the participants where I didn't normally get a chance to socialize with them. Some of the legacy guys, like the 2010s, which are fascinating, right? My own background, for anybody who didn't hear the first one, graduated in 2008 with a degree in econometrics, which is the thing I never got to use in commercial real estate. I joined a commercial real estate company in New York City called Time Equities. I came up through like the pretty standard route, started in leasing, ended in asset management and acquisitions. I was very heavily invested on the owner side of the community. In 2016, I had the opportunity to join WeWork, where I had led a group called Enterprise Real Estate. And there I was in charge of doing some of the more like configured enterprise deals. So I entered the flex landscape, but never through like the B2C side of it. Like I missed that entire world, right? I only had the opportunity to work with like, Sprint and Walmart and Target and BP, but I did have the opportunity to work with them globally. So I was doing the configured deals, and configured deals was anything generally over 100 desks that might have some term associated with it. But I also got a chance to work on the Powered by We product. So I did a lot of campus redevelopments and repositionings. So I really got exposure to the occupier side of the community. In 2020, when I left WeWork, I launched Alidade, which is when I was on the pod the first time. And at Alidade, we were really specializing in trying to help the ownership community develop their product sets, away from just conventional alone, but into, either the configured pre-built space, the service pre-built space, and sometimes even in a co-working and down into amenities and conference centers. I did that work between 2020 and 2022, but what really became clear to us in 2022 was that we didn't have a really good understanding of how occupiers were doing things, right? 2022, obviously, the depths of COVID, it was a real struggle for us to figure out what occupancy patterns were going to look like. And so we did a lot of work, started to experiment heavily, and started to move as well into the occupier community and deploy some of the things that we were thinking about. And what became clear was occupiers didn't know either, right? And by late 2022, we had started to gain access to quite a bit of occupancy data. And that occupancy data was reams and reams of information. Like we broke many Excel spreadsheets just taking in 6 months worth of data, right? You're talking hundreds of thousands of rows, right? That you've got to try to figure out what to do with. And so we looked at each other and we said, I think we need somebody who actually understands what technology is, how databases work, and how to build a product, because we were getting really tired of doing the same thing over and over again. And our clients were getting really tired of paying us consulting fees, right? They wanted something more normalized, more on demand, more readily available. And so we had the opportunity to meet a company called Kettlespace. And in meeting Kettlespace, I got to meet Nick Iavachini, who's now our president, as well as Ryan Donohue, who I ambushed to join this call today, because I thought the audience would like to know a little bit about our journey, but also see it through the lens of technology. So with that, I'll introduce Ryan, my partner.
That's amazing. That's such a great segue. Yeah, so my background is not in commercial real estate at all, but it is heavily rooted in cloud-based software development. So I started Came out of college a little bit earlier than Brandon. I won't say how early, but I've been
You
doing this
know,
for,
Brandon's such a kid.
he's such a baby.
Yep.
Just look at his LinkedIn photo. So I came out around 2000 and have been building stuff on the internet ever since. So a lot of tech consulting, a lot of day-to-day engineering, building engineering teams, product management. And there's kind of a common thread, which was always I'd go into a large company, whether that's, you know, a FedEx, an EMC, a Wayfair, and just kind of look around and pull things apart and see where technology can make processes. And that's kind of been the operator in me, has always been to pull things apart and put them back together with technology, because humans kind of suck at doing the same thing a million times and computers are awesome at it. So when I met Brandon, we were coming out of the Kettle, and what we were focused on is the future of work, how people, occupiers in particular, were going to reduce their space, get more efficiency, embrace kind of like hybrid models and affinity between teams, and create environments with like people and purpose, because that's what's going to drive people back to the office. And I met them, and we had built our platform, and I met Brandon and his team, and I was like, y'all are doing this the hardest possible way. They're breaking Excel sheets. And I was like, you might as well, it's like Panama Canal with a spoon, kind of difficult. So we had generally the same thesis. We were kind of coming at it from different angles. And quite frankly, we were early, because one of the things we realized at looking at the data is occupiers haven't shrunk yet. They don't even know what to do. To Brandon's earlier point, like everybody's kind of confused about what RTO is going to be. Is there going to be a pattern? I don't know. But what we did know is that data would tell a better story if we could organize it properly. And that was really the start of our journey. And the problems with commercial real estate are not atypical from an industry that's going under like a forced transformation, right? Something happens, whether that's, I don't know, a pandemic, where it kind of changes the dynamics of an industry. And to survive, you really have to get smart and get customer centric, and kind of build some value into your pipeline.
So that's now you know why I love Ryan Donohue so much, right?
So what are you working on?
So we launched the product, and we spent September 11th. I don't normally say this, but September 11th was our merger date. I normally say September 10th, but for this audience, why not, right? So we had started working with each other quite heavily early summer last year. We onboarded a massive enterprise occupier portfolio, 25 million feet, something like that. Right?
Yeah, just 25 million feet, 261 sites globally, 80,000+ people, 3 years of occupancy data. It was a beast.
Yeah, and that was the first one where we were like, before we met these guys, we were like, I'm sorry, I know how to, like, I know what to do with the data, but I can't put it all in one place for you. So we started working with them over the summer last year, and that kind of became like our get to know each other, go to the altar type of thing. That portfolio took us through into like our first kind of lenses of what the product was going to look like, at least for the occupier. We spent the fall and into the winter building the owner side of the portfolio as well. January, we launched formally as the first versions of the product. There, we onboarded our first 1.5 million square feet. We're on the way to another 13 million square feet under the owner world in the next 3 months. Signups have been pretty brisk. On the occupier side, we've kind of kept ourselves somewhat contained because the work is very difficult, right? It's not like on the owner side, it's profit motive. It's like, I need to figure out, is my business plan working? Are people coming to the office? Are my amenities being used? How do I understand this stuff? Who's going to renew? Who's not going to renew? How does it impact value? On the occupier side, it's different though. It's like, how do I take in this data? How does my CRE leaders start to recognize that they're a trusted advisor for the business units? How do we communicate to the business units what they're actually occupying and not? So we've kept our occupier business somewhat on the small side, but that said, the occupier business for us is like 60 million square feet now on the portfolio, which is cool and growing. But we're going to keep that to like 5, 6 very interesting clients that we want to work with for a lot of different reasons. But on the owner side, it's been really a compelling place to sit. And Ryan, I kind of pick up on you. Is why another reason I invited him on this was like, what we recognized was the owners were lacking quite a bit of information, right? Just even down to things like, do I have a floor plan in which I have FF&E for the tenant, right? Like, am I aware of what the tenant actually built? was a struggle. Remains a struggle,
It
right?
remains a struggle
Right.
to this
And
day.
so on that, Ryan, like the couple of things on that is like, where do we sit? Like, what does SFO mean to us? Like, that's been a big thing for us in being able to pull this stuff together and find our place in this niche.
Yeah, and I think it's been interesting because we inherently want to move real fast, right? We can see kind of a path to more value, more efficiency, more flexibility. But what we realized constantly is we have to slow down, right? Because these are not wave runners; these are aircraft carriers. Some of these big ownership groups, and rightfully so, because they're playing with 9 figures of office square footage, right? So when we talk about SFO, not the airport code, it's spatial, financial, and occupancy data. So spatial, Brandon already talked about. It's always like some dude named Pete who kind of doesn't work there anymore, who has them on a thumb drive. Like it's just weird. It's just interesting. So that's always a struggle. It's like, here's my floor plan. I'm like, sir, this is crayon, and you obviously just drew this. But we tend to get it, by hook or by crook. We can kind of get our hands on it with some elbow grease. Financial is pretty easy because it's a business and people watch the pennies. But really, the bogey for us, and one of the main reasons we've been kind of tapping the brakes is occupancy data is just non-pervasive. It just doesn't exist, especially for owners at the tenant level. 85% of buildings in the United States don't have pervasive access control systems. So how do you get occupancy data? And why don't we have it? And it's because we've never needed it. Before the pandemic, everybody showed up at the same rate all the time. It was a constant. Economic occupancy equal physical occupancy. COVID smashed that in half, and now we've got no idea. And we're kind of like running in the dark with our shoes untied, blindfolded in a forest. Like we're going to bump into some stuff if we don't start getting some visibility into how people are showing up to the office. So we've been working really hard to create kind of like a movement where the people drive real estate. And if you're not counting occupancy, you got a pretty big blind spot. So whether it's tapping in access control systems or it's passive infrared, if it's Bluetooth low energy, if it's other kinds of like presence or traffic sensors, we're working with ownership groups to tell them like, not all the horror stories are true, right? The hardware is good. The deployments can be better. They are cost effective. They are accurate. And just working with them to understand that they don't have to break the bank to get that critical piece of data for us, which is the occupancy.
And when you talk about occupancy, do you mean people walking through the main front door every day or something else?
Do you want me? I'll go. So we talk about occupancy.
People hear my voice. They've heard my voice way too often, Ryan. I'll color
I'm
it
just
in.
not used to getting the floor when you're present. I'm used to just being like, back up, buckle up, get on for the ride.
Well played.
So the occupancy data, when we talk about occupancy, we talk about attributable occupancy or occupancy that can be attributed to a specific tenant space.
Okay.
So the building level is great, but it's extremely limited in what it can tell us. If we know 800 people went into a building, that's cool.
Yeah.
But if we know that 40 of those are from Acme Co and 80 of those were from Nike or whatever it ends up being, we can start to get a better lens of, because we have the floor plans and the financials, now we have occupancy, we can start to fuse those together and paint a really good picture of their utilization rates, the value they're deriving from that space, and then start to build risk profiles, which ladder up to building efficiency rates and all these things. So it's really that attribution to the tenant space that we're looking for.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it makes sense that it never existed. That the
landlord we always say, like, jokingly, like, it's nobody's fault that this doesn't exist. Like nobody did anything wrong or built any bad tech. It's just like, why would you even need it?
Yeah.
But we can't ignore it anymore because it's critical.
So Brandon told us what he loves about you, Ryan. What do you love about Brandon?
Oh, man.
Oh my God.
Jeez.
How much time do we have? We're going to run out of tape. Brandon is I'll tell you a story. So when we met, it was still with Kettle. We met these Alleyday guys. I had no idea what was going on. I'm from Boston. I took a train down. I was in somebody's apartment. Turned out to be Brandon's brother's apartment. And we had a meeting, and kind of like Brandon like pulls me aside and starts showing me this transformation he's been working on, which is a demand curve, which is neither here nor there. And immediately fell in love with him. Just the energy, the passion, like just the depth of like thinking that goes into everything. very little comes out of his mouth that he hasn't thought about for 40 hours conservatively. So when I went home and back to Boston, I told my wife, I was like, I think our business just fundamentally changed. I think we got an unlock here and some firepower and some horsepower that we have not even sniffed in the last like 18 months, 2 years of working on Kettle. So I was really excited about just like, he's delightful. Look at him. I guess it's a podcast. Probably can't.
Delightful.
That go on.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah. And honestly, like startups are a struggle. And if you're not working with people that you get along with, it's torture.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of fun along the way. We keep it light, but we work hard, and like finding people that are kind of that same ilk where it's either 0 or 110% is pretty rare. So when you find kind of a kindred spirit like that, you grab onto it.
Yeah, I mean, I love how passionate he is about everything, right? You ask him one question and before long he's going, and I'm like, you lost me 3 sentences ago.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do from here. But I mean, it's incredible that you guys have found each other, because I think y'all speak the same. Just listening to you in this last few minutes, Ryan, I mean, clearly you speak the same language as Brandon does. I mean, I've been lucky to be in the room on his pitches to a big landlord and also to a group of operators and just vendors in the space. So it's been fun to watch that growth. Brandon, the other day we talked about kind of what that growth has been, right? I mean, I don't know what level you feel comfortable mentioning names or if you don't, but a lot of them are big institutional groups that are really diving deep into what the future looks like. And a lot of them are there's a lot riding on the next few years with their loans, with their, occupancy, with their partnerships, all kinds of stuff. So to what level can you kind of share what y'all are working on from that standpoint?
Yeah, I guess I'll just like talk in the abstract about some things, but like we found ourselves working across the US, heavily into Canada. We're kicking off in the UK over the next few weeks, God willing. We'll kick off in Australia shortly. But really where we found sort of the testament to this is I think if you really sit with somebody and talk to them long enough, the first thing that they'll say is what they believe. The second thing they'll say is what other people believe. And the third thing they'll say is what I actually know, which is little, right? And so you kind of have to work through that pretty briskly, right? You have to say like, well, here's what, if somebody always says, here's what I believe. I believe that all law firms are coming back to the office. I believe that occupancy rates are. I believe that the deals that I'm working on are great. I think that my tenants are going to renew. And then you kind of go through that. And then they always fall back to, okay, well, forget that. Here's what other people believe. I was at a conference and I heard that the S&P 500 is doing extraordinarily well, and that's correlated between office returns, and that's why everything's going to go well, right? And then you point out the inherent flaws in that logic, that never have we seen 24% general vacancy in the U.S. office market and 3.2% unemployment. So is that really aligned anymore? And then you kind of get into the fact of like, okay, I don't know. I really don't know, right? I really don't know what's going on. It's hard for me to tell, right? And so it's been somewhat pervasive across the sector of like, people look to the anecdotes that they can try to understand. And across the larger organizations, there are fantastic people going through big transformations in their space. And they tend to be really siloed. They tend to kind of just see what they can see, right? They can't see across their marketplaces. They can't see across the tenancies. And so what's kind of incumbent in those guys men and women who like realize that they're in a business, that office is their core sector, there's a new understanding which is definitely taking place of like, we need a better version of ourselves. We need to be able to say, if I believe that Austin is coming back to the office better than LA, better than San Francisco, I can't just say it. I have to prove it. I have to show you that it's a real thing that's happening. If I believe that law firms are the type of tenant that we want to go after because they're occupying space well and they're sticky and they're high duration, then great. If I say that I'm going to build an amenities program and it's going to be the most successful amenities program in the world, then I have to prove it, right? It's not enough anymore in this space to just say, I'm doing it because the guy across the street did it, or I'm doing it, et cetera, et cetera. There's a real transformation heading into this business, which prioritizes something for the first time, transparency into things that we can see. It prioritizes a meaningful engagement in providing actual value to our tenancies. And I'm not saying we weren't doing it before, it's just that the concept of value changed, right? And it also means like downstream into like providing the correct services, providing the correct technology, providing the correct guidance to our clients to be able to help them. And I go back to what somebody said to me of like on the occupier side, but I think it rings true across the field. It's like, I need to not be a transactional person. I need to be a trusted advisor, right? And to be a trusted advisor means I provide the information, whether it's good, whether it's bad, but I provide the information, right? That's true whether you're the head of CRE at an organization. That's true whether you're on the investment team at one of the largest, general partners in the world. It's true whether you're running asset management for an LP. It's true whether you're a lender, right? That trusted advisor perspective is, I think, what's needed in the space. And so we're trying to really fill that gap, right? Like steer off a bit from some of the operational elements, which we believe are true and coming, but steer more towards the investment class guys. And you call them, like I said, CRE guys, I would call them in the same bent as I would call the chief investment officer at a firm. They need to be good citizens, right? They need to be able to communicate effectively with a new field of view. And that's the kind of gap we're filling. And I don't know, Ryan, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think and we're at the acceptance stage in a lot of ways, right? And we always say we're not here to tell you good news or bad news, just the news. And I think that there's a pretty we're having very different conversations now than we did 6-9 months ago. I mean, I won't go as far to say people told us to kick rocks, but it was pretty close. But now we're having conversations where, it's no longer it's my tenant's problem, right? Like they have to figure it out. It's now, like you said, Gio, like leases are coming too. There's transaction events. People are going to right size. And I think that the people who are driving, particularly like office, like knowledge worker, like that ilk, they have a real chance to step up and be heroes and then be rewarded richly for it, right? Reach across the table, be transparent, be willing to make a deal that is atypical from 4 years ago, provide value. You will be rewarded with loyalty, and it's the same thing in retail. It was use technology, understand your customers more, create a better experience, marry digital and physical, provide actual value, provide personalization, and be rewarded with loyalty. Yeah, there's less retail than there was, 12 years ago, 14 years ago, but it's a hell of a lot more valuable now. Office isn't going away. I shouldn't be in this room 24/7. It's not healthy. Ask my family. So that's what we're trying to see. What we're starting to see pervasively is like big institutional groups that did the same thing for 40 years are starting to come around to there's got to be a better way. And we're just trying to fill that knowledge gap with kind of a common language where we can all do apples to apples comparisons in very transparent, very rigorous kind of data-driven ways. Just make better decisions for people.
Yeah, the only other thing I'd add to that is like, and I said this to you guys both before, it's what Flex does natively, right? Like Flex has to do it. Like, what's your lease term of a normal environment? 6 months, 3 months, month to month, up to a year, maybe. You have to promote loyalty above all things because loyalty is the thing that induces stickiness. You have to be able to provide services. You got to care about them. Now, for everybody who's listening to this, imagine doing that for 8 to 12 assets. Now imagine doing it for 45 million square feet, right? Is it going to have the same services that we can provide on like a local super boutique? I love this market. I'm Nashville. I love No, but it doesn't mean that the skeleton isn't there, right? That the musculature isn't there. So coming out of Flex for me and for Ryan, who was, born in this stuff in our real estate careers, like, we have to figure out what is scalable from it. How do we scale the concepts of hospitality? Like, how do we go from one great person who can know everybody to one person who can see the data and be able to communicate and put out fires, or not put out fires, but like kill the fire before it starts, right? Like get ahead of these things. And so it's like the great marriage of these two sides of the business, this like heavy institutional or even but like heavy real estate side of it, full scale massive buildings, conventional, which won't go away, it will change, right? To the flex side of it, which so many people listening to this call know, fully understand, and are bred into. How do we get these things to match and marry with each other in a systemic way, either through management agreements or, exchange of IP and ideas or whatever, right? There's a lot of great ways to do it.
It's
Sorry.
like Brandon's always like way over my head, but you are pretty.
Thanks,
Okay,
Yeah.
one of the phrases that popped into my head, and I don't know if you would consider this to be like an accurate description, is like a truth seeker. Like, what you're saying, like, look, we're not here to like tell you good news or bad news, but we're telling you the news, and then we're gonna help you figure out like what do you do now? And it sounds like even 6 to 9 months ago, like earmuffs, we do not want to
no, it
hear
was totally
this.
ostrich.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thanks. And now, right, we need to know. And then Brandon maybe is presenting like
World review, big review.
yeah. And,
that's his
maybe
job.
the future state of the nirvana of where asset owners and institutions might get in terms of thinking about
Definitely.
Yeah.
There's a great
So, Brian, go ahead.
There was a great line. I was reading a piece on Boeing, not to pick on Boeing, right? But it was going back to like when Boeing started, the owner was on the shop floor, right? Like his office was right next to the plant in Seattle, right? Every day he would walk and he would check and see, like, I want to make sure everything's done right. It's like the 50s, right? And you kind of fast forward from the 50s to what Boeing became, a financial organization, right? The guy moved to DC, and there was a disconnect between the guy who was supposed to be running the business and the business itself, which is making airplanes, right? In a big way, I think that kind of happened in commercial real estate, right? Like we saw a disconnect between like, oh, no, real estate's an investment. It's not an operating class. I'm not that interested. Like I'm about raising money. And we're seeing a return to the shop floor in a lot of ways. But there was a piece that like the old CEO of Boeing had on his door, a slogan carved into bronze, and it said, "There is no authority except facts, and facts are obtained by accurate observation." Right. And I really love that because it's a testament to like, we got to go back to the shop floor in office in a lot of ways,
Yeah. So, I mean, Ryan, you kind of already tapped on this, and Brandon and Kevin and I talked a lot about this over the last couple of years, is the fact that in the suburbs, you don't have access to a lot of the key cards and, the garages with the fobbed access and all that stuff. How are y'all? I mean, let's talk about suburban versus urban, right? I think it's really easy to come up with urban stuff, urban data, in some of these. I bored Brandon and Jamie so much that they both went off camera. So
I
Ryan,
was
it's
gonna
just
say, Gio, I'm riveted.
yeah.
I'm riveted.
I mean, kind of what's y'all's take as y'all are diving deeper into that data on the urban versus suburban, and obviously it varies by markets, right? But kind of if you were to give a big picture, what is it that y'all are seeing?
Yeah, I think the key for us is kind of, again, that attributable occupancy, and it just doesn't exist, right? And we're not gonna go to somebody who's got 200,000 square feet in Phoenix and be like, listen, you just need to drop $500,000 per turnstiles in this building, everything will be fine. Like that's insane. So what we have been getting really good at is working with owners on like non-invasive strategies, right? So can we get the data we need with as little invasive work as possible and as cheap as possible, as fast as possible, but also with like a high degree of reliability that's also not going to break the back of kind of local PM teams. And we've been experimenting with a couple of partners. We do a lot of work with this company, Butler, which came out of the MIT Media Labs here in Massachusetts, and they've been great. right? Working with them, iterating with them, just kind of improving the product flow. And we think we've got, we're relatively agnostic to the solution, but we're starting to get really good at working with owners to kind of demystify the whole sensor thing. There's no PII. It's not prohibitively expensive. They are effective. They do work well. And Gio, that's really our strategy for kind of suburban markets is to just, can we put in something for low 5 figures a year that'll get us a significant ROI in the insights that we can glean from those spaces.
Yeah, and just to add to it from like the proposition of leasing, we take the position that we can only know what we can see, right? What we can see so far is some of the suburban assets are doing great, right?
Yeah.
There's some tenancies in there that are full occupancy, their peak usage rates are doing great. Like, so we measure, one of the big important measures for us is what was the space built for? What was peak occupancy, right? So if space was built for 100 people and 70 was peak, that's not bad, right? Like that's not bad relative to some of the stuff that we're seeing. But then one of the other measures is what is average occupancy, right? So you might see peak occupancy on that one day, 70%. But if average occupancy was 35%, right? Well, that's a huge problem for the occupier in terms of like, I have most of the year, I'm awash with underutilization, but sometimes I need some extra space, right? So we've seen suburban stuff that's been doing extraordinarily well, some of the law firms, but like you got to nuance it. Some of like the personal injury law firms, the litigators in Seattle and the suburbs, they're doing great, right? Because they're forced to be in the office. Their clients come to them. They do depositions. Great. We've seen environmental law firms, which are not showing up to the office. We've seen some of the federal guys, like guys who do lobbying, they're not showing up to the office because their clients aren't showing up to the office. So it's irrelevant, right? And so we haven't yet seen, Gio, to your point, like enough to be able to comfortably say the suburbs are and the urbans are, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just too confusing in the suburbs, right?
Yeah.
You got a building across the street from another building. That building's doing great. The building across the street is dead, right? And so it's difficult to kind of draw conclusions. I was talking to my brother who's in the commercial real estate industry, and he was like, what would you invest in today? And I was like, you know what I'd invest in today is A- stuff, right? Like stuff that can never be anything other than an office building, but is currently being Swiss cheesed, right? People are leaving, nobody knows why, but the building's in great condition, the building can be competitive. And so it seems today to be less of a function of the marketplaces and more of a function of the tenant mixes inside of those specific assets, right? It's a tenant specific problem, whether, Gio, to your point, there's like a predominance of a specific type of tenants, then that could be a problem, right? If you have a building that's full of Dropbox and Dropbox, lookalikes, then not a great building, right? It's gonna suffer. But if you got a building that's more full of like the JP Morgans and the corporate worlds, then it's doing better, right? But you can have a building across the street from each other today, which has serious problems, but the other building is doing fine.
So it's funny that you answered my question because I was going to ask if you could put your money somewhere, where would it be? And you and I kind of briefly discussed that the other day. Amenity wise, I mean, so what do you guys, I mean, kind of what's your position on amenities and what's worth spending money on, what's not? I mean, I'll tell you, as I'm running around, the spec suites are going like hotcakes across the entire country, right? Because people want that turnkey flexibility already built out, right? Easy to get in and out of. But I mean, kind of what are you guys seeing?
I had a great conversation with somebody here in New York about the pre-built environment, and his point, I'm not sure if I believe it, but it was a good point, was like, are pre-builts in desire because people want short term and flexible, or are they in desire because nobody wants to stomach the capex that comes with it in today's environment? And I think that those things are they're not at odds with each other. There's a lot of noise inside that system, right? Like, yeah, I don't want to spend $300 a foot. If you want to spend $300 a foot, I'm happy to lease it from you, right? Like, so there's a lot of that in just these like peak atmospheric construction costs that we're still living in, which are a testament to what came before. But that said, you look at any market report, Gio, across the whole fleet, right? Like every market says the same thing. Sub 10,000 square feet are flying off the shelf, right? So you got to ask some, you got to ask yourself some big questions. Why are the sub 10,000 square
Yeah.
footers flying off the shelf, right? Like
Yeah.
it's because the average size of a lease before was 8,800 square feet, but really like at the median end was 20,000 square footish, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so those guys are downsizing, and they're the ones that had the shorter term lease structures, and they're the ones that are folding over, and they're the ones that are regional, and you're able to make decisions on a per person basis rather than like across a whole incredibly bureaucratic fleet of space where we got to do change management, we got to get new technology deployed to everybody. The market is still owed from 2021 and 2022 a tremendous amount of leasing. Not leasing in terms of square footage, just leasing in terms of deals that have to get done, right? We're still owed it. They haven't happened, right? And so we're waiting on that shoe to drop, right? And when that shoe drops, they're going to drop to buildings that are capable of providing them with the TI, capable of paying the commissions, capable of providing them with amenitized environments, capable of providing them with a discount over A plus space. If I'm going to spend $50 a foot in a market and A minus is priced at 42, is that a healthy spread? No, I'd rather go to the A plus space if I can get it. But if that A minus building gets repriced at 30, well, okay, I can play ball on that. Like that's a good deal, right? Especially if they can pay the TIs. And so a lot of that stuff is still underway and still happening.
Yeah, it's funny is I've had a bunch of conversations with people. The conversation people are keep asking, so when are rental rates going to come down? And my comments are in most markets, they're never coming down, right? I think concessions are going to continue to increase, right? That your effective rent may go down because you're getting more concessions up front. I mean, obviously there's markets where there will be a reset as some of these properties are traded, but I think that's the reality is a lot of people are waiting for that. Do you agree or disagree with that statement?
It's a loaded question for a call.
I know.
Ryan, what do you think?
I was just gonna say, I'm just gonna sit back and just bask in the glory of this answer.
Just answer it.
I think in some marketplaces,
Take a stand, damn it.
I think in some marketplaces, not all marketplaces, let me just make a testament to that, that the next few years, general vacancy is likely to come down when buildings are taken offline, not when leasing increases. Now, that's not going to be true for everybody across the board,
Yeah.
but it's just the nature of sort of the game, right? Like, I think that the guys that whoever owns the current buildings are likely to own them again, right? They just need to find a way to get to a fresh place, right?
Yeah.
And there's always like an old saying of like rents go up like a lion, right? But down like a lamb, right? Like easy for rents to go up because you're protected, but on the way down,
Yeah.
you gotta really look and think about who's in your capital stack, who am I negotiating with, how do I
Yeah.
correct this, right? And so we're seeing that lamb motion in real time.
That was a very, very good answer. Well done, sir. All right,
Yeah,
Ryan, your hot seat.
that's still gonna bite me in the ass, I
I
guarantee
was
it.
gonna say he's uncomfortable right now, taking a stand on that. I
All
like
right,
it.
well, we'll make you uncomfortable then, Ryan.
Sure.
So if you could have a conversation with one living person and one dead person, who would they be and why?
I'm a big fan of Oppenheimer. I would like to
Okay.
talk to him, like to pick that brain.
What would your first question be?
How did it feel when you
Okay.
first saw it go off? Right after all
Okay.
that work. And
By the
then
way, he's not, I just want to quote for the audience here. He's not referring to the doomsday device that was built. He's referring to the ultimate view of his life's work to see it
yes,
happen.
yes. How do you feel after putting that much of your entire life at risk, if nothing else, just to try and just sheer willpower to pull off something like that? Like the
I would have
enormity of
never
that
guessed
task.
Brandon would have been the PR damage control side of this
You've-
personality, but
Yeah, give me some time, Gio. I'll slip up. The other one, honestly, Sam Altman. I want to know what's in that backpack so badly, and I just think it's
It's
fascinating. His
nothing,
run.
Ryan. It's nothing. There's nothing.
I think it's a bunch of Uncrustables, to be honest with you, but there's supposed to be a button in there. I think he's just carrying around snacks because he's like hypoglycemic or something. But I'm very curious about that. We talk often about my least favorite acronym, AI. and just how it's going to save everything, but nobody actually knows how it works, and the amount of raw effort and the amount of data, the amount of time, the amount of data science, the amount of machine learning before you even start to sniff a useful AI solution to anything. So I'm really fascinated at kind of in that sphere of like how that's going to affect this market and others as well.
What about you, Brandon? Someone dead that you would want to talk to? Who is that?
I think I
This
told
is,
you before, but when I was younger, I had like a love affair with Nikola Tesla. I thought he
I knew
was
you were
just
going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
coolest guy in the world, weirdo, like fed pigeons in his later life, lived at the Waldorf Astoria till he died. But like, man, the stuff that guy cooked up in like, I don't know, the 20s, that guy took Niagara Falls and converted it to like the first major hydroelectric dam and powered the World's Fair. He built the Tesla coil. He built fluorescence. He was part of the, RC remote control and servos. Like the stuff that guy produced in like just like an anachronistic time. How did he do it then? And like, granted, we're through all of that time in which is, the things proved out that he was right about it. He invented alternating current, the dynamo, like just so crazy to think about somebody in that time and place, like producing things and at odds with somebody like Edison, which is a classic thing. But like, yeah, he's always been somebody I'd love to sit and like feed pigeons with, I guess. Yeah.
It's so funny because literally I could see you sitting in Central Park feeding pigeons at an old age.
Yeah, fine. Let's do it. I'll see you there.
All right, Jamie, what do you got? You're on mute.
I don't know.
You've got her speechless. This doesn't happen
I
often,
know.
gentlemen.
There's
This does not happen
Another-
often.
totally doesn't
Uh,
happen. I know.
another
I'm
milestone.
digesting. This is a
So, Jamie, we actually have, but I think by the time this airs, or maybe we can move it up to next week, but we have locked in Brandon to speak at Immersive for GWA in Nashville. So,
coordinating with Megan on Nashville. I figured you had something to do with that.
Yeah.
so excited.
What's his
Like,
topic?
what is the title?
Whatever he wants it to be. Well, I mean, I think the big part is I think they're having conversations on a level with institutional owners and enterprise users on a level that people, I mean, it was almost like people in our operating space were like, oh, yes, the future is team offices. And I'm like, what data do you have to support that? And it was just a bunch of assumptions that people were making. But Brandon and Ryan are actually having these conversations. They have the real data, they have the facts, they're in the room for these conversations. And so I want people to actually hear from Brandon, and if he drags Ryan with him, even better to have these conversations about those things.
Just to be
that way
fair,
somebody can say, well, I heard at a conference.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That's where I wanted to couch this. So if I can leave everybody with like an idea, it's that we don't have all the answers today, nor are we entitled to have all the answers today, right? Like the only path through to this thing is, do you have a systematic way to get the answers and then start to get reliance on it? Like, can we convert ourselves from an anecdotal driven organization or driven industry to an objective one? Like, we don't have enough. Maybe on the path, we'll get there, right? But our kind of goalposts for this whole thing was, don't say things you don't know, right? Or try not to. I might have said this on today's call, right? But like, try to be thoughtful, be pragmatic, be partnership oriented, like, and just reject everything you knew before, because we're likely heading into a period of heavy change. And so you just need to, I hesitate to use the word science, but like the scientific method is going to kind of prove us right. Like, have a hypothesis and reject it or accept it based on what you can see,
Ryan, what do you have to chime in after that? I see you dying to jump in.
Yeah, it's tough to keep me quiet for too long. I was going to say, I think one of the things that we like to say internally is don't guess, because you don't have to, right? We've been doing, we kind of lovingly refer to it as brain damage, but like we've been doing this brain damage for a long time now, and we've learned a lot of things and we've seen a lot of data. We've been very privileged to work with some large organizations, and there is a way forward, but there is no silver bullet. I can promise you that. There is no one size fits all. data and being scientific doesn't dehumanize the thing. It just gives you a path forward. It's very much the end result for us. The kind of the grand vision is an environment that is more flexible and built for the people that occupy it. And we'll get there, but we got to earn our way there. And we got to look at the data and just kind of let it lead the way. But like Brand said, we've been wrong just as often as we've been right. And we've been up at late at night and looked at the data and be like, well, shit, that we got to throw that one out. So as long as we're kind of pragmatic and rigorous, like I think we'll get to a good spot.
Okay. Another question for you, Ryan. You're about to go in and pitch to big institutional landlord.
Yeah.
What shoes are you wearing? And what shoes is Brandon wearing?
Oh my God. Why?
Oh, well, first of all, we have to get the first thing we're going to do if we ever raise a Series A is get Brandon a fashion consultant. We're going to buy him a couple of, I'm going to buy him. Yeah, I'm going to buy him a couple of belts and get him out of those Adidas. I'm a big fan of the sneaker with the sneaker look. That's my move. Leather sneakers, white soles, black or brown, don't care. Very comfortable.
A long time ago, there's an architect, Michelle Rohin, like fancy architect, great guy. I love him. Mexico City guy, played in a rock and roll band, like the epitome of cool. And I got to hang out with him while we were developing some stuff at WeWork. And one day we were out to lunch and he goes, Brandon, I love your style. It's no style.
So Ryan, I'm with you. So I have a Cole Hunt problem. So
yes, there you go.
I hear where you're at, but Brandon still cracks me up, man. I still remember showing up to pitch Highwoods in North Carolina. We're meeting with the COO, and I looked down and I said, "Can you at least tie your shoes?" He goes, "No, these are my pitch shoes. These are my pitch shoes," and it's his untied Adidas.
Yeah, it's the untied blue-gray Adidas. I'm like, what are we doing?
Adidas are very stylish right now. They're very
in.
Thank
Not
you,
these
Jamie.
ones, Jamie. That's kind. Not these Adidas. Not these ones. But that's very kind.
She's seen him. She's seen him.
She's seen him. I have two boys, and like my instinct as a dad is like get on a knee and tie his damn shoes. And I'm like, wait a second, this is my business partner. I can't do that in the middle of a meeting.
Can't tie his shoes. Oh boy!
I've never seen Brandon turn red. This is a first.
And there's been a lot of ups and downs for me on this conversation. Yeah.
Well, I'm really excited just to see y'all continue to gather the data. I know y'all have got some big partnerships and some big initiatives going on from an institutional level, from an enterprise level. I mean, even a service provider level where y'all are really the horsepower behind some of these things and the decisions they're making and all that. So I appreciate you jumping on here and having this conversation with us. I look forward to hearing you in person and seeing you with your new leather white sole Cole Huns in Nashville that Ryan's going to buy you. But either way, I mean, Jamie, you have any last questions? I know you probably asked Brandon your typical question after the last one. Ryan hasn't gotten it.
Okay. Yeah. Ryan, what's your karaoke song?
Oh, Don't Stop Believing, Journey. Easy.
Ooh, okay. Right into it.
Yeah, that's happening every time.
This guy's not afraid of karaoke.
Koreatown, Charlestown, doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's coming out.
We've had some resistance to the karaoke question, like,
Not for anybody who works at this company. Yeah,
it's an open book. Open mic.
I can totally see Ryan and Brandon up there doing "Don't Stop Believing" by Journey together.
Be happy to.
Wait, Brandon, you have a karaoke superpower. Is it all Billy Joel songs?
It's all Billy Joel songs, but specifically, we didn't start the fire, and I don't have to read the lyrics,
which is impressive because that's not there's not an easy one to rip out. I've seen it.
Yeah,
I see Brandon's poncho T-shirt. I can totally see him in the pearl snaps and just sitting up there singing, just ripping it open mid journey.
I do have
showman.
I do have the
showman is the word that you're looking for. He's a showman. He gives the people what they want.
Ooh.
He gives the people what they want.
My mama told me a long time ago, when you get on stage, you're not on stage for you. You're on stage for everybody else. And it doesn't matter whether it's your first performance or your 1,000th performance. You have to do it like it's your first one, right?
Okay. Well, here's another one. Your walkout song. You're about to go in to pitch to the largest institutional landlord. You get to pick A
Judas-
walkout song.
Judas-
What is it?
Judas Priest, you got another thing coming.
All
I
right.
like it.
Ryan, what's yours?
Taylor Swift. No, I'm just kidding. I'll go Black Betty.
Ooh,
Okay.
nice.
I'll go Black Betty on
I
that one.
like that.
Jamie,
Lamb.
what's yours?
I don't know. I don't know if I have a walkout song. What's your walkout song?
Kurt gave me Enter Sandman.
Enter Sandman.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's a
nothing
good
wrong with
one.
that. I mean, that's Exit
That's a good one.
Sandman, but whatever. Yeah.
I like it.
True.
Okay. We're gonna wrap
Well,
with
for
it.
anybody who made it this far, thanks for listening to this
Totally.
podcast. Great to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks for giving us a twofer. This was really enjoyable.
That
Nice
was
to
super
meet you,
fun.
Ryan.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Until next time. Maybe you'll be our first repeat guest.
Maybe.
There you go.